All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Dilblon, as the Elders and Apostles of Great Millstone, who are teaching this truth and sincerity. And shout out to Yakims out there in the four quarters of the earth proclaim this truth. Barak the Yahweh, Barak the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Barakatum. So pretty much it's looking like a strike against Iran is going to happen, as well as an invasion of Cuba, all in the mix. As these videos go into, it's imminent, both. And, you can also look at Greenland and his ambitions as well about Colombia. He's looking to take over everything, because they know that they have a short time to get this new world order moving.
Hey everybody, Josh Harrison, World Alternative Media here, and I think we could very well expect an imminent attack on Cuba at this point. Obviously, These moves have been made in large amount in the last few days, and I wanted to go into some of what this means for you and I and what it means for Cuba, as we see similar moves made to what we saw with Maduro. And it says Trump administration announces criminal charges against former Cuban President Raul Castro. Of course, there are a lot of statements made on this as the U.S. has deployed aircraft carriers to the Caribbean as tensions with Cuba rise. And very interesting stuff is Lindsey Graham cheers this on. The chances of war with Cuba are very high. Marco Rubio says the odds of a peaceful agreement with Cuba are not high, so it's not going to be peaceful. And this is happening at the same time as we see some crazy moves over drones and indictments in Mexico. So we're going to go into what some of this means as they roll out direct kill operations in Mexico. This is actually getting to the point which we have been unfortunately predicting for quite some time and unfortunately have been proven correct on, because it's not that we are
drone wars
here. They say what they're going to do before they do it, and now they're doing it. So we're going to get into this and more, my friends, today. Before we do, I urge people to check those links below and check out our Patreon at Havana as the Trump administration attempts to force change on the island after nearly 7 decades of communist rule. The charges are related to the shooting of 2 humanitarian planes in 1996. They're really grasping at straws here. Not that that isn't important, but I mean, again, this is a horrible communist government. However, the people that plan to replace it are the same people, one, that put them in power in the first place to create a culture of fear with between the Russians and the United States in the 1960s, but also is the same government that traffics kids and tortures and murders them and covers it up. So we're going to expect those people to do any good and actually care about the future of the people of Cuba. It's complete nonsense, just like it is in Venezuela, just like it is in Iran. The Department of Justice asked to unseal the indictment against Castro and 5 other people in a filing in federal court in Florida on Wednesday. The indictment charges Castro with 7 counts, including conspiracy to kill U.S. nationals, destruction of aircraft, and murder for each of the 4 passengers aboard the plane. The planes being flown by Brothers to the Rescue, a group that conducted rescue missions for Cuban exiles who sought to flee the country. For 30 years, Cuban exiles in America and their representatives in Congress, such as Representative Carlos Jimenez, around the Republican Florida, pressured the DOJ to bring charges against the 94-year-old Cruz. His late brother, Fidel, and others in connection with the Cuban MiG fighter jets shooting down the BTTR civilian planes when they were outside Cuban airspace and flying back towards Florida. A number of Republican members of Congress on Wednesday morning held a press conference condemning the communist Cuban regime and Cruz and saying they expected him to be charged. The indictment against Cruz was unsealed later in the day. So there's more to go into here, and I'm going to play some clips right away, but I want to talk about the fact that they're sending these aircraft carriers to the Caribbean to, again, go to the shores of Cuba. They have said that they will plan to go, I mean, Trump has joked about it.
Wars and rumors of wars, right?
At the shores in Cuba, and that Cuba is just going to surrender just like that. However, the government says we are going to fight and we will be militaristic in the sense. It's just a mess that doesn't need to happen. I mean, it is up to the people of Cuba, and if people want to be apathetic there, then so be it. What we see in Cuba is horrible. It's a horrible communist government, again, propped up by the West in the first place. We'll go into that shortly. But this is from Senator Kennedy, and this is what he's saying on Fox News.
Fidel Castro, the original Castro, was pretty smart. He was evil, but he was smart. But these asshats since then have just been incompetent. They're like 3-wheel shopping carts. I mean,
as if your Congress is incompetent.
They take all their money and they give it to the military and the police and themselves. And to
wait a minute, that's what the U.S. government does.
Isn't that what the U.S. government does?
Ah, there we go. He said it.
It's not a model for success. And they're gone. And they just don't know it yet, whether we do it through an invasion or not. I'd rather do it the easy way, but that's kind of up to the communists who are running things.
I mean, this is the kind of rhetoric we hear all the time. Again, yes, Cuba's government is horrible. It's obviously really bad at taking care of its people, but that's by design because it's communistic, so it needs a circle of dependence. But who else is like that? The U.S. government. No, they're stealing people's money and giving it to the military. Like, what has been going on this past year and a bit with these wars all over the world, and how does that happen?
And don't forget the ballroom.
To the military, to what,
Trump's ballroom.
Cuba, from Iran, a country that never attacked anyone in 200 years, but now apparently the country that has attacked more than 100 countries in 100 years is going to be the virtue signaler on this, saying that we're going to bring peace to the world by bombing. It's so absurd. The whole narrative is so absurd, and it's so inadequate when you actually consider the hypocrisy of what they're saying here.
And so hopefully now they're seeing that America will stand up for them, but they'll do it on their own. But if it takes something, we should not take anything off the table. I mean, the same thing happened to Maduro should happen to Raul Castro. But I'm not going to get whatever the Trump administration wants to do.
The same thing that happened to Maduro should happen to Raul Castro. We are hearing a lot of stuff like this.
This is a mess.
This is from Representative Salazar.
And this is a message to the Castros. Look at Maduro. President Trump gave Maduro the opportunity to go.
Fuck
with his
you.
wife, with his family, somewhere else, and with the millions that he stole from the Venezuelans. But Maduro thought that he was smarter than President Trump. So I'm talking to Raul, to the cousin, to the nephew, to the son, and to the grandson.
Oh yeah, because you want
Pay
to save
attention and look what happened to Maduro. It's time for you guys to go. Because there's a new sheriff in town.
Step down.
And that sheriff is Donald Trump.
Imagine if, like, and I know people act like it's not the same thing, but it is. It's just everyone just elects.
Like Bashar al-Assad must go, right?
Imagine if the Castros, or if let's say
Bashar al-Assad is gone. Now ISIS runs it,
and facing charges from the U.S. as well. Imagine if he decided, you know what, us in Bolivia, we're taking over the United States. Now people might say, well, they can't because they're not strong enough or powerful enough to do it. But imagine if they are. And imagine if you're living in the United States and you're proud of your country for whatever reason, even if it's wrongly thought out, and some other country comes to your door and says, oh, well, it's time for you to go, and you're like, who are you and what do you have to do with us? I mean, yeah, it's easy to, from afar, say this is fine, but imagine actually being in that country and having another country just telling you what your determination is. That's not a choice. And you have no self-determination at all. That's a major issue here that we're witnessing. And again, the Cuban government is horrible. The Venezuelan government is horrible. I've talked about it before. Maduro personally signed a letter that banned me from Venezuela over a decade ago for stuff I did talking about him, speaking out against the horrible things he does. I have so many Venezuelan friends that I was hanging out with a bunch of Venezuelans. I think I'm like 50% of my friend group might actually be Venezuelan, and hanging out with all these Venezuelans when the news came down in January over Maduro. It's not that I'm like not sympathetic to them getting rid of Maduro. Obviously, Maduro is a horrible person. Raul Castro is a horrible person. Diaz in Cuba now is a horrible person. We can talk about all of that, but it's who is replacing them and what the agenda is. And we're going to talk about why now, right away. We're going to go into what this actually means and why they're doing this in Cuba and Mexico. And we're going to go into Mexico, of course, shortly as well. I just want to go over a few more of these stories here. Southcom says it's rolling out more drones and autonomous systems across the Western Hemisphere to boost surveillance and go after cartels and narco-terrorists. Again, this is at the same time as we see the direct kill operations in Mexico. So this is very interesting. Let's see what this shows.
Has more demands, according to the NDS and NSS, for the whole Western Hemisphere, but especially for Southcom, is that we need to really think about
terrorism.
Autonomy in support of our requirements,
by the fear
for maritime
narco-terrorists.
That would really enhance our ability to see our
G.I. Joe, right?
Autonomous systems provide so much.
A real American terrorist.
Connect our weapon systems and our domain awareness systems to that forward screen, set conditions, then to bring in the heavy steel when it's required.
Can I just point out that all these explosions they're doing, they never show in a court of law, which again is a constitutional issue, that any of these people are guilty. They also say that they're blowing up drug boats, where in many cases it's turned out to be fishing boats. It's another thing that, you know, the U.S. government is the biggest trafficker of drugs in the world, from Afghanistan poppies and heroin to the crack trade to Iran-Contra to Operation Fast and Furious to what they've done with arming and funding cartels in Mexico. It's just a complete joke for them to dare to pretend to virtue signal about any of this stuff and to say, oh, well, look at us, we're saving the world by blowing up all these people. Like, it's insanity.
What we need is a mix of incredible Coast Guard teammates with their systems and their boats. We need the ability for partners to see further out of the horizon. I think autonomous systems will help us get there.
We're talking about AI-powered drones, just like Palantir has. Interesting that Palantir had so much to do with the election, and like they are using in Gaza against children for the Israeli government. Again, when we have AI deciding who lives and who dies, we have a big problem. But they just talk about, oh, these autonomous, nice, drones that are saving the world from drugs. I mean, who is trafficking the drugs into the United States in the first place? Why on earth would you have fentanyl going around in the United States by the hands of the drug dealers? Why would drug dealers want to kill their own customers? This is far bigger than just, accidental contamination or anything like that. It's not happening in Colombia where they claim it is. It's not happening in Mexico. In fact, if you go around, and I've tried this in Mexico just as a test to see if this is a real thing. I've gone around, when I lived in Mexico for 6 years, going around and asking the dealers on corners, hey, do you have fentanyl? No one does. No one does. It's complete nonsense. This is just such a joke. Oh, and then it reappears suddenly in the cocaine when it gets to the United States, despite it being clear that it's being flown in from China to around Juarez and shipped over the border by the CIA. But okay, this is just the reason.
Thomas Massey has lost his primary race. Defeating one of the true America First members of Congress using a massive amount of foreign interest money has only lit the match. More Americans are angry, and more Americans are suspicious of Jews. I'm just going to come out and say it. People are looking at the 2.5% of the population and seeing the massive amount of sway this group has over our politics and media, especially now, after a favorite politician is just thwarted. And they're mad. And it's not just mad at Zionists or mad at Israelis. The anger is being directed at Jews. And it's not about anti-Semitism. It's not that people are just fundamentally against Jews or Jews. It's because people feel undermined. They feel that the majority is being kicked aside for the will of the minority, a very, very small minority. And this should set off alarm bells for everybody involved. But you know what? It doesn't. You know why? Because this is what they want. The Zionist goal, the Israeli goal, is to get as many Jews to Israel as possible. So if they can turn the country against Jews, they accomplish their goals. They get as many Jews as possible. They are creating the very environment that they're claiming to try to defeat. But in reality, they want that environment because they do want all of the Jews to run off to Israel. You can't have a country if you don't have a population. And the bigger the population, the more land you can justifiably take. The defeat of Thomas Massey is the worst thing to happen to Jews in America. Every single Jew will be subject to suspicion of dual loyalty. I am just telling you how it is. AIPAC, Israel, Miriam Adelson, they have ensured a deep suspicion that many of our fellow Americans are actually loyal to Israel, infiltrating our politics and our country. And yeah, I now can see a future where this escalates to a very dark and bad place.
Yep.
American elections are compromised. And now we have...
And there's more on it.
The Iranian hackers who breached Israel's intelligence servers have dropped receipts that should terrify every voter. While AIPAC hold record cash into Kentucky, Thomas Massey, the one man they couldn't buy, the most popular politician in the States, was rigged out of office by a literal nobody, almost nobody can name. This wasn't politics, this was protection. Protection for Israel's blackmail networks, for the pedophile compromise, and for the foreign lobby that owns Congress. They don't just influence elections, they control them. What the hackers found is bigger than one primary. And when you hear how they rigged Kentucky, you'll understand the real reason why America first transformed into Israel first. Before we dive in, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
And he's right about that.
The man they couldn't buy. In a primary that shattered every spending record, AIPAC and their allies dumped tens of millions, unprecedented cash, to crown a nobody. A man almost nobody had heard of. A name half the voters still can't remember. Edgar Wine didn't win this on ideas of grassroots fire. The system was wired. Ballots, machines, momentum, all bent to bury the one guy threatening the operation. And the way they rigged it is shocking. But more on that in a moment. First, let's face up to some uncomfortable facts. Right now, a foreign agent, AIPAC, is mocking America and American elections on X. Look at that ratio.
Yeah, it's been a muck.
199 likes. Numbers like that are usually reserved for Ben Shapiro posts. Keep those numbers in mind as we continue to investigate this rigged election. The plan to infiltrate America is almost shameless. Let's see how that's going by checking in on Erica Kirk, the Mossad asset, whose husband was conveniently murdered when he started speaking out about the Israel coup. Oh, Erica didn't endorse Thomas Massey. Sure, she endorsed Spencer Pratt, but not Massey, who just so happens to be Charlie Kirk's favorite congressman. She's doing such a good job of upholding his legacy.
And one of the members of that new church committee is one of my favorite members of Congress. He loves the Constitution. He loves liberty. He's honest and he's tough, and he's going to really go after the intel agencies. It's Thomas Massey, who's just terrific from Kentucky.
Yep.
Congressman Massey, welcome to the program.
So,
Hey, thanks for having me.
Here's the dirty truth they don't want you connecting. The Iran war was Israel's first payoff for the Charlie Kirk assassination. They could never have dragged America into that meat grinder if Charlie Kirk was still alive. He would have torched the whole operation from day one. The Kentucky primary was their second payoff. Charlie Kirk would never have allowed Thomas Massey to be rigged out like this. Massey was his guy. The one congressman with a spine to fight the blank checks.
now Carlson's on the top of the hit list.
With Charlie gone, the path was cleared. First the war, now the purge. This was about silencing anyone who gets too close to the blackmail machine. The pedophile networks, the compromise, the foreign lobby that treats Congress like its personal playground, while America's borders bleed and its kids get trafficked. They don't just compromise and buy politicians. They rig the entire game so real Americans never get a real say. Let's face facts. The numbers in Kentucky don't make any sense. The math isn't mathing. It's scandalous.
Kind of like how Obama became. Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely wanted to win this, and they put gobs and gobs of money into this election, a fortune. Do you think if you put in millions upon millions of dollars, do you think you can afford to lose? Probably not. And so, if you're willing to spend that kind of money on an election, and that's not even counting all the other things the pro-Israel and the Israelis have been willing to do in order to get their agenda through, they kill children. They kill children. They do the Epstein honey traps and pedophile traps, so they're not above anything. So here is Massey losing after the vote count is doubled. So this primary brought out double the number of voters as previous primaries. So if we look at this, let me just go ahead and pull this up full screen. This is Kentucky 4th District Republican primary, Massey versus opponents of Massey. This shows 2024 to 2026. Massey's votes in 2024 were 39,929. In 2026, they were 47,539. That is an increase of 19.1%. Now, the opponents of Thomas Massey in 2024 received 12,664 votes, but in 2026, the opponent, Ed Belrain, received 57,822 votes.
So, like everything else, though, you know, that brings us to our point. This is not your rest. But there's a lot more going on in the headlines. Okay, that's just showing you that the voting system, it's all fake and all that. Things that you should know as an elect member. But we still go into these things, right? You know, but we know that voting, it doesn't matter anyways. The Most High is in control. So guess what? You know, this ain't our place. This ain't our rest. So, you know, now going on to, you know, the new announcement that, and cancellations, yeah. It was supposed to be, you know, again, Trump called off an attack that was supposed to go through. Now he's getting ready for one.
This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Brakata Yahweh, Brakata Yahweh Shai. Brakata Yahweh, Brakata Yahweh Shai. Yahweh is the name the world ignorantly calls God, and Yahweh Shai is his son, the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. First and foremost, I want to give all praises and all glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, B'Kadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone who rebel towards this truth. They are the true teachers for the nation of Israel on earth today. And salutation to the Akim out there pushing this truth as sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth, risking their life for Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai's sake. My brothers and sisters with GMS Mighty Camp. And yes, the reason I brought out the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 9, is that reports are coming in how Mr. 47, the cruel Lord, the fierce king, Donald J. Trump, skipped his son's wedding down here in South Florida to stay in D.C. For preparations to continue the war with Iran. And that's why I brought up the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 9, because, hey, this war in the so-called Middle East, all right, is setting the stage for all nations to get involved, all right? Because that Strait of Hormuz supplies, what did they say, 20% of the world's oil, okay? So when this war with America and them JJs, who are leading the charge, who are forcing America's hand to continue to fight with Iran, all right, it's going to drag a lot of these nations into it, okay? Which is fulfilling prophecy, because prophecy has to be fulfilled, okay? So this is the will of the Lord. The Lord is controlling, all right, the world stage, and you got to be with it, because this is all leading to our salvation, all right? So let's go back to Joel chapter 3, verse 9 and continue on. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, right? And the Lord set up his prophets, all right, to proclaim, all right, this upcoming, all right, which we're in the beginning stages of World War III, okay? Prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords, and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong, right, okay? And that's why all you have to do is go to Google AI or go to ChatGPT and ask them in the last couple of years, have all nations put more money into their so-called defense than domestic? And it will say yes. In fact, I'll do it right now. In the last couple of years, have nations put more money into defense than domestic? This is bullshit, okay? Because America, all right, is going to do 1.5 trillion. Okay, the AI's playing little games, okay? There's been several articles over the course of many years that we've done, we've done lessons on how they're putting more money into defense than domestic, okay? So AI is being, again, they're fucking with the AI, all right? This is bullshit. Let me ask it this way. Has defense spending increased more than domestic due to the ongoing global conflicts? Let me write it this way. Let's see. See? Look at that. You see? This is right, man. This is how you word it. It's how you word it, man. Okay, boom. Yes. See, there you go. See? Hey, shot. Yes, global military spending reached a record of $2.887 trillion in 2025, marking the 11th consecutive year of growth and outpacing the expansion of most domestic non-defense budgets. You see? This surge has driven the global military burden spending as a share of GDP to 2.5%, its highest level since 2009. Right, and again, before we had Google AI articles, we used to find articles that said, yes, defense spending has increased and outpaced domestic spending. Okay? So, it's just how you word it. All right? But this is the facts. All right? But again, it all goes according to prophecy, because this is the will of the Lord. All right? He's putting his spirit, okay, on these kings and military personnel, all right, to fulfill his will. That's why it says in the book of Proverbs, 21:1, the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, Yahweh. As the rivers of water, he turned it whithersoever he will. You see? Okay? And the king's heart is like a stream of water directed by the Lord. He guides it wherever he pleases, right? So the Lord put the spirit on these, okay, modern day, kings, these presidents, these, what's it called? These politicians, to take the people's money, all right, and spend it on defense, okay? And that's just what it is. It's the same AMP. The king's heart is like a channel of waters in the hand of the Lord. He turns it whichever way he wishes, exactly. All right, so this is the will of the Lord, so that prophecy can be fulfilled, so that World War III, all right, what's it called? Gets bigger and louder and hard-hitting in your face, and ultimately leads to nuclear war, okay? Because that's what World War III is. World War III, okay, ends in nuclear war. That's the end-all, be-all, all right? However, the nukes are not going to fly until what? The mark of the beast, RFID chip, is made mandatory, which is the Lord is guiding that too, all right? He's putting the spirit on those, AI, mad scientists, the Neuralink companies, all right, with the brain implants, those mad scientists, because the AI and the brain implant scientists, they're all connected, as well as the crypto scientists, madman scientists, because this is all connected, all right? So that in order for you to buy or sell, you have to take that digital, okay, off, aka the mark of the beast, RFID chip, okay? And that's a fact, all right? So yeah, so let's continue on. So this confirms that this prophecy is being fulfilled. Joel chapter 3 verse 10, beat your plowshares into sword and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I'm strong, right? Okay, you also got nations building nukes, okay? Remember, there are no more nuclear treaties, okay? The last nuclear treaty expired in February of this year, okay? So all these nations, okay, are going to get into building nukes, all right? That's the will of the Lord, all right? NLT, hammer your plowshares into sword and your pruning hooks into spears. Train even your weaklings to be warriors. Let me see what it says, AMP. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say I'm strong, right? Okay? And the nuclear missile is the equalizer, okay? All right? And people are seeing like, hey, if I get a nuke, America won't attack us. That's why do you think America, okay, hasn't fucked around, okay, with North Korea? Because North Korea has nukes, all right? So it's emboldening all these nations to get nukes, okay? Which is to fulfill prophecy. And there's nothing, and it's easy now to get a nuke and build one, all right? It takes less than a year, let's put it that way, all right? Because the technology has been advancing. Knowledge, the scriptures talk about knowledge shall increase. You know what? Let me get that. I know it's in the book of Daniel chapter 12, right? Daniel chapter 12. Where's it at? Yep, Daniel chapter 12 verse 4. But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. Right. So, all right, it's easy now to make a nuke, okay, in less than a year. It doesn't take years now to build a nuke, okay? It doesn't. And again, this is to fulfill prophecy. This is the will of the Lord. Joel chapter 3 verse 11. Assemble yourself and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord Yahweh. Verse 12. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. In the Hebrew means, the Hebrew way of saying Jehoshaphat is Yahweh Shaphat, and it means Yahweh's judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Right. And where is the valley of Yahweh's judgment? All right. The so-called Middle East. Okay. The Levant. Okay. West Asia. That's why the Lord is making that
Syria.
hot. And that straight up moves a great way to drag everybody there. Because once the JJs and America continue the war with Iran, and this time boots on the ground, it's going to disrupt the global economy worse than what it is now. Okay. Worse than what it is now. All right. And that's when these nations are going to have to get involved to protect their interests. All right, and a lot of them are already involved behind the scenes. Okay, whether they're supplying intelligence or supplying resources.
Yeah.
Just Google how many countries are directly or indirectly involved in the Ukraine and Iran war. All right, Google it. It's worth a Google. So, 2 Esdras chapter 16 verse 1. Woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Syria. Right, meaning destruction. Okay, and this third world war, all right, is going to bring about the destruction. 2. Gird up yourselves who calls for sack and hair, bewail your children, and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand, right? Okay? And get ready for a draft. Your children will be drafted, okay, into this war, okay? And there's going to be a heavy depopulation of men, okay? That's how we know Isaiah 4:1 is coming. It's coming quickly. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 to everything.
And there's a lot more on the selective service, because we'll get into that in a few videos from now.
A time of war and a time of peace, right? We're in a time of war, okay? And a time of hate, all right? That's the season we're in. Facts. Last one, and I'll close out. Revelation chapter 19, verse 10. And I fell at his feet to worship him, and he said unto me, See thou do it not. I am thy fellow servant and thy brethren that have the testimony of Yahushai. Worship the Most High, for the testimony of Yahushai is the spirit of prophecy. Right. So, all right, we're in a time of prophecy, man. All right, and that's the spirit you got.
And we're testifying.
The Lord, you need to be in the spirit of prophecy. Okay. And as you can see in 2026, all right, it's mainly us here at Great Millstone, the spirit of Yahushai. All right, from the apostle elders on down that are in the spirit of prophecy, okay, that are going, okay, into these articles, all right, and filtering it through the scriptures, you know. Here it is, Trump skips his own son's wedding down here in South Florida, okay. This is a 3-day weekend, all right. You know he doesn't want to be in D.C., you know, but something happened, all right. And again, it's the war in the Middle East, okay. And again, we're in the beginning stage of World War III. So let's see what happens, okay. All right, this war is only just getting started. Get ready for boots on the ground, okay. You ready, Doc? Let me show you something real quick, and then I'll close out. Just to track USNI fleet tracker. All right, these are the transponders that follow, all right, the Navy ships, all right, and these Navy ships, all right, are carrying soldiers, mainly Marines, okay, all right, and of course they carry aircrafts, you know, warplanes. So as you can see here, what the fuck is going on? I do this. There's some bullshit. As you can see here, you got the Abraham Lincoln, which is an aircraft carrier, okay, and it's surrounded by destroyers, okay, to protect it. You got the George H.W. Bush, is another aircraft carrier, okay. And And then you got the USS Tripoli, which is literally, okay, a ship that just carries Marines. All right, then you got this Boxer ARG. Okay, this is what they're showing us. And again, this is from the May 18th. All right, this Boxer ARG wasn't here. It was all the way the fuck over here. And now look where it's going. Okay, and this Boxer right here carries nothing but Marines. All right, so obviously, okay, it's about to be boots on the ground. And I'm watching this USS Nimitz. They extended this this aircraft carrier, okay, which is a warship because it carries, okay, warplanes, right? They extended it to 2027. This USS Nimitz is supposed to be decommissioned, right? Meaning not operational. It's supposed to go back to the fucking Norfolk, Virginia, all right, to be disassembled, all right? And then you got this Ford that got fucked up, this USS Ford aircraft carrier that got fucked up, okay? It's mending its wounds. So we in time, man. We in time of war. Ain't no peace. It's only war, okay? Because this is the spirit of the Lord, okay? This is what He wants to fulfill prophecy, all right? So let's see what happens. You know, Lord willing, this war continues on, all right? Lord willing, this weekend, okay? So Donald troops finally sends the boots on the ground, okay? Being pushed by the JJs, the 1948 squad hats. At least in Fox, I'll draw them out, right? Because it's the JJs, the 1948 squad hats, that are pushing America, dragging America, drawing America into this war, all right? That's why America will never be able to lead the so-called Middle East, because that's not the will of the Lord at the end of the day. Okay. Again, this is I'm giving it all to Yahweh Bashem Shai. It is the will of the Lord. That's why you have war. Okay. And you should be for these wars because we need these wars to get the F up out of here. Okay. All right. So, Lord willing, says, and finally, I want to give all praise and all glory to Yahweh Bashem Shai, Bashem Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone who rule well and taught us this truth. They are the true teachers for the nation of Israel on earth today. And citation to the Akim out there pushing this truth and sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth, risking their life for Yahweh Bashem Shai. I say, love you brothers, keep the door, keep faith, keep pushing, keep fighting, keep studying, pray without ceasing, pray for each other, pray for the apostles. There's almost out here. All right, the Lord is turning up. All right, He's setting it up, the stage up. All right, so that we can be delivered. Okay, and yeah, man, we only have a matter of months. And when we say months, all right, it could be 12 months, it could be 24 months, it could be 36 months. We only have a matter of months. Okay, all right, and that's and you should be excited about that. All right, and you should be in the spirit to want to get up out of here, man. All right, because this place is wicked, it's demonic, it's ran by wicked people that are pushing this demonic spirit. Okay, all over the earth. All right, but if you start watching, keep studying, and preparation comes shalom.
And here's the headlines. Trump administration mulling new military strikes against Iran. Fresh round of military strikes against Iran being prepared by the Pentagon as diplomacy continues to bring an end to the 12-week war. So a fresh round of military strikes against Iran are being prepared by the Pentagon. So according to CBS, defense and intelligence officials began updating recall rosters for U.S. installations overseas and its trenches of troops stationed in the Middle East rotate out of theater, part of an effort to reduce the American military footprint in the region and amid concern about possible Iranian retaliation. So, yeah, they're getting prepared for war. And you already seen this article. He skipped his son's wedding amid reported Iran strike preparations. So we could see attacks this upcoming week. You know, we could see it any day now. You know, oh yeah, and then there's that too. I'll get into that in just a minute here. But look at this. Another school was bombed, but this time by Ukraine. And like everything else, so, you know, they do this because it's fun. You know, because let's face it, the leader of the West world, King of Babylon, Donald Trump, says bombing schools are fun. You know, so Zelensky and Trump have a lot in common. To stay in power, fuck, they don't even need elections anymore. Yeah, you got Trump for life, man. Or should I say all the way to the lake of fire, because that's where it's going, man. Babylon the Great will be destroyed under the Trump administration. I have no doubt about it. Nero will bring it to its destruction, because if you know anything about Nero, that's exactly what he did with the old Rome. And here he is back in the second leg of Rome. Putin vows heavy revenge after deadly Ukraine strikes on Lezhinsk school dormitory. At least 39 were injured and counting amid ongoing rescue efforts after a school complex was torn apart on the multi-drone strike attack. It happened at a school dormitory in the Russian-controlled Lezhinsk region. Over a dozen victims are still missing, including children, reports say. So, yeah, expect retaliations from Russia over this. Ukraine has yet to comment. Its forces are fighting to try to recapture Lezhinsk, one of 4 regions Russia unilaterally claimed as its own in 2022, in what Kiev considers an illegal land grab. Well, these places were being shelled. It's not like they valued it before Russia came in and intervened. They kept on shelling it, so If you want it so bad, then why the fuck are you selling them? Iran's UN envoy rejects U.S. allegations about drone attack on United Arab Emirates nuclear plant. Yeah, because they try to do a false flag and say that Iran attacked United Arab Emirates to draw them in as well. Iran's ambassador to the United Nations dismissed U.S. allegations regarding a drone strike against Barakah nuclear power plant. And actually, United Arab Emirates knows that it was Saudi Arabia that did it, not Iran. But you see, to keep the narrative going, the U.S. claimed that it was Iran. D.C. abused the Security Council to spread false accusations against Iran and its peaceful nuclear program. Iran categorically rejects the allegation Iran itself has been the victim of attacks and acts of aggression by the United States and the Israeli regime against to safeguard peaceful nuclear facilities, the letter said. So like everything else, though, they had nothing to do with that. But you see, both Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates are struggling for power, even though they can't really sell their oil because of the bloc. Although Saudi Arabia has a little more leverage than United Arab Emirates does, but got to remember, this divide is because of Trump, you know. And Saudi Arabia is still able to move their oil up through Syria. You see, that's another thing, is they're just going through land. It just takes a lot longer to get there, obviously, but they have a deal where they can go up through Syria into Turkey and then get out that way. But that takes a lot longer. So this closure is definitely wreaking havoc. UN moves to protect fertilizer flow through Hormuz Strait. Good luck with that. The UN moves to protect fertilizer trade through the strait as tensions threaten global food production and supply chains. And this is all a manufactured crisis. It's a fake, as you can guess. You know, it's a fake shortages. But that's what Esau's doing, you know, to draw everybody into this war. As conflicts in the Middle East unfolds and threatens to intensify, disruptions of maritime trade through the strait risk creating ripple effects impacting humanitarian needs and agricultural production in the coming months. Immediate action is essential to mitigate those consequences. The dedicated task force will work to develop a proposed technical mechanism that will facilitate fertilizer trade, including the movement of related raw materials through the strait. Well, Iran's not blocking any country that didn't attack. You see, if you're China and you did not have anything to do with the attacks against Iran, you can get through. If you're India and had nothing to do with the U.S. attacks against them, you can get through. You know, lots of shipments go out and head that way. But the disruptions, well, guess what? Donald Trump is the reason why you're not getting it, because now he's put a blockade against Iran. So you got blockades on both sides of it. And it's all being done deliberate. Trump's hollow threats mask America's dissent as Iran stamps its authority. The weak saying that we're strong, right? See, this is all prophecy. And that's why we're occupied in prophecy, because Yahushua is speaking and he's saying over and over again, "Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast that thou hast." In other words, hold to this truth, man. You know, don't give it up, man. Keep on striving. You know, that's why we always say strive to survive. Behind the bolster of maximus pressure and theatrical military threats from D.C. lies a reality that architects of the maximum pressure campaign dare not admit. The U.S. is slowly hurtling toward a critical economic, political, and strategic principle. Iran, by contrast, operates from a posture of strategic clarity, exercising patience to ensure that no agreement is accepted unless it safeguards Iranian interests and meets all of Tehran's stipulated conditions for permanently ending the third imposed war. You know, and the Third World War is coming quickly. The fact the American empire is collapsing under the weight of its own failures, Iran's resistance is rewriting the rules of deterrence, so concessions must flow from the U.S. side. So, like everything else, though, they're standing up to a bully. They're putting a bully in place, and boy, Trump does not like that. He goes ballistic when you even bring up the Epstein files, or you even question how much money he's spending on that fucking, you know, he says you're a stupid person if you question how much money, how much taxpayer money, not his money, but how much taxpayer money is going into those reconstruction plans of the White House. You know, the ballroom, you know. What a piece of shit, man. He's at least showing you that he's taking all your money. He's stealing from you. And he's saying, hey, I fucked you. How you like me now? Hey, don't forget to vote. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Pentagon concedes that the U.S. provided most of the Israeli missile defense during the Iran war. Yeah, that's why Saudi Arabia and all those other places, Kuwait, all of them, really did not have much of a defense, because all the defense was really over there in the Israeli state, knowing that they were going to be the heaviest targeted, right? But that just totally destroyed all those other bases, man. They just totally got wiped out, because that's where all the defense went. The U.S. fired hundreds of its most advanced interceptors to protect the Israeli state from Iranian missiles during the first 5 weeks of the war. According to the Department of War, the U.S. used 200 terminal high-altitude area defense THAAD interceptors and over 100 SM-3 and SM-6 missiles in defense of the Israeli state. So, no wonder why they couldn't save their bases. All to protect the Israeli state. During the conflict, the U.S. used half of its stockpile in advanced interceptors, including Patriots, SM-3, SM-6, and THAAD interceptors. The numbers are striking. The United States absorbed most of the missile defense mission, while Israeli state conserved its own magazines. See, only the U.S. spent the money on the war. U.S. intelligence, well, because Israeli state is invading all those countries, invading Syria, they're invading Lebanon, you know. They got interest in the whole thing. Post reports that the U.S. has postponed advanced naval assets near Israeli state to assist with missile defense in the war restart. So, like everything else, so now they have to, you know, redirect everything. And that's why they're taking so long with this next threat. But, got one more video here, the word Edom being found 87 times, which I thought was interesting. So, let me get a few scriptures here before I close this out. So, I'm going to read verses 11 through 13 first in Revelation chapter 19. Then I'm going to go back to Revelation chapter 19 verse 10. And it's all going to make sense as I do this. So, you know, this is the AMP translation. And I saw heaven open, and behold, a white horse. And he who was riding on it called Faithful and True, Trustworthy, Loyal, Incorruptible, Steady, and in righteousness. He judges and wages war on the rebellious nations. So, you know, that's talking about Yahweh Shai when he comes in the clouds, which are known as the chariots. His eyes are a flame of fire, and on his head are many royal crowns, because he's going to take them. He's going to take all these kingdoms. And he has a name inscribed on him, which no one knows or understands except himself. Which his name is, you know, is Yahweh Shai, which means he's King of Kings and Lord of Lords. See, you know, you have to look at it, you know, from the full perspective. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Yahweh. So, like everything else, though, you know, that's talking about when he comes back to judge this place and to gather his elect. Verse 10, then I fell down at his feet to worship him. You know, because this is what we're going to be doing when he gets ready to judge these nations, those of us that made it. But he stopped me and said to me, you must do that. I am a fellow servant with you and your brothers and sisters who have and hold the testimony of Yahweh Shai. Worship Yahweh alone. For the testimony of Yahweh Shai is the spirit of prophecy. His life and teaching are the heart of prophecy, which is why we do what we're doing diligent. You see how this all works? You see, he's going to know that we were occupied in this, which is why we were called up there to begin with. You see, and we pray we're part of that hopeful elect, because we don't know until we get there, right? But this is a pretty good look to those of us that make it. This should be the outline of why we want to make it. So hopefully this has all been edifying. Got one more here from Apostle Tahar. For that I want to say, Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Rekakadash, Wal Abba Babal. Brakatam, Jehovah elect, Shalom.
Shalom, do all praise to God, Bashem, Hashem, Bashem, Kakadash, Shalom, 244,000, we elected Shalom to all. And I'm going to entitle the video, the word Edom appears in the Old Testament. I may change it a little bit. I might put the Bible 87 times. Well, in the Old Testament, we keep the Old Testament. Anyway, I did a video featuring Alex Jones. Somebody called in talking about Edom, the Edomites, and the guy kept saying Yahweh, Yahweh. And they say Yahweh or Yahuwah. So we know that he's not a one West person. I don't know if he doesn't talk videos or whatever. But anyway, so I mentioned Edom and I said I was going to do a word search on the word Edom, Esau, the Edomites, like Dumia. So I was watching this video. Okay, let me see. It's still currently live, so you can watch it. 73 people watching 37 minutes ago it started. DLS 5/21/2026. 3 scriptures proving the Edomites are here. So you can watch the video. So I said, let me go ahead and make that video. I said I was going to make in the previous video I did about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. So what I did was, because they're saying Edom, when we bring up Edom, well, Edom is just a character in the Old Testament. He doesn't exist no more. Vocab. The Edomites are done away with. During the time of the Maccabees, then when you go into the history of someone from the family line of the Maccabees, the priest, high priest, John Hyrcanus, he was someone, he killed a lot of Edomites, burnt them up. But he spared them, and he said you got to keep the laws. So you might have Edomites back then that knew the laws. No different than Samaria. When they placed the people, the heathens in that land, they had to keep the laws. That doesn't make them Israelites. And these small heads didn't just come from Kazakh and Turkey, Turco-Edomites. Some of the Turkish embrace Islam, others embrace so-called Judaism, which is a made-up religion. Judah is a people, it's a tribe. You can't make a religion out of a tribe. So anyway, let's just go ahead and do this. So I type Edom. It occurs 87 times in 82 verses in the King James. And the first verse it appears is in Genesis 25 and 30. And the last time it appears in the Old Testament is Malachi 1 and 4, which we're familiar with, Malachi. So I'm not going to read every verse. Let's just start with the first. Genesis 20. So Esau is an important nation in the scriptures, both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament, more so in the Old Testament. And what things consist in the Old Testament? The prophecies. Matter of fact, let me go to that. So Genesis 25 and 30. And Esau said unto Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am same thing. Therefore was his name called Edom. He was called Edom because he wanted the red pottage. Let me look at the word pottage. Let's see what the word is for pottage. Pottage. Okay. Pottage is not there, but red. Adam. Or Adawam, Adam. So it doesn't tell you what the pottage is. What we were taught it was lentil beans, wasn't the meat. Okay, I'm surprised I didn't go into it. Come on back. So you can't just throw Edom out. You get, oh, Edom is not important. Those people don't even exist. Then the prophecy is all wrong. This is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to make this long. Okay, so Edom, the word Edom is mentioned a lot in the book of Genesis. Really, from the 25th chapter to the 36th chapter. And they play a major part in prophecy, so they have to be here. Like the Apostle Mabal put together, the title was 3 scriptures that prove that Edom is here. It's a good title. Numbers 20 verse 14, and Moses sent messengers from Kadesh unto the king of Edom. And Edom knew that he came out of Abraham and Isaac. So they knew each other. The Edomites knew who the Israelites were. The Israelites and the Edomites knew who the Canaanites were. The Philistines and so forth. The Moab, Ammon. Thus saith, because they're Semitic Hebrews. Thus saith my brother Israel, thou knowest all the travail that hath befallen us. That was the whole thing in so-called Egypt. So basically, the king of Edom shows that we don't give a damn about your problems. You can't go to the king's highway, which is right here. I believe Numbers 24 and 18, and Edom shall be a possession. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's something else. And that's Balaam telling Moab what the Israelites are going to do, the sons of Jacob are going to do to the Moabites and Ammonites, the Edomites, and people surrounding them. Give me a second here. The computer's acting up a little bit. Okay, so now we're in okay, so Saul, this is 1 Samuel 14 verse 47. So Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all his enemies on every side, against Moab, which is an enemy of Israel, and against the sons of Ammon, and against Edom. The Edomites always been our enemies. So how in the hell we don't have enemies in the kingdom, not working out there in the field, but doing what we told them to do? And against the king of Zobah, and against the Philistines, which goes back to Mizraim, these so-called Egyptians, and whithersoever he turned himself, he vexed them. 2 Samuel 8 verse 14. And he put garrisons, who put garrisons in Edom? David, King David, he had full power. So he was able to take down the Edomites. And he put garrisons in Edom. Throughout all Edom, put he garrisons, and all they of Edom became David's slaves, or servants, which are slaves. And Yahweh preserved David whithersoever he went. Now wait a minute, if the Most High always loved Edom, why did he allow David, a man of the Most High that was set up king, a man beloved of the Most High, a man after the Most High's heart, why would he do this thing? Why would he commit such an act? You know what I want to do? I want to go into the word garrison. Garrison means jurisdiction. If you live in New York City, 5 boroughs, you have precincts. A precinct is a garrison, but there's no Staten Island. There's no wall around Staten Island that you got to go through. It's just open. I can drive down to Staten Island or the Bronx or Manhattan. And then you have precincts. Now these precincts have jurisdiction over certain parts of the boroughs. Like in the Bronx, you have many precincts, and they deal with that section of the Bronx. I know because I've been in enough precincts. It says, and he put garrisons in Edom. So let's look at the word garrison. And I believe that word, if I don't look for somebody can put it in the chat. So let's look up the word garrison, or garrisons. All praises to Yahweh, Bashem, El Shaddai, Bashem, Papa Dash. So the word there is Nataza Yab. Set over something place, pillar, prefect, or prefect in Japan. You have prefectures, which are jurisdiction. Garrison, post, pillar, prefect, deputy. So it means another word is precinct. Where is that? Paris's. I believe that's in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. I want to see if I can pick out some more words. In other words, King David set up jurisdictions over the Edomites. And it said that they was, like I'm going to read it again. It mentions that, where's the word enemies? Where's the word enemies? I just read that. Give me a second, though. And Edom, okay, 3 times. And Edom shall be a possession, Seir also shall be a possession for his enemies. And Israel shall do valiantly and come back into our power. It's going to ride on the backs of the Philistines. Okay, this is what I wanted. So Saul took the kingdom over Israel and fought against all his enemies. What is one of the enemies of Israel? Not of Saul, but of the Israelites, the Edomites. They always been our enemies. So in the kingdom, the Most High is going to give some of them a break. You keep listening to the knuckleheads if you want to. Okay, Amaziah. We know about Amaziah. That crazy king. That wild and crazy guy. This guy's he's a real demon. But he did a great act. 2 Chronicles 25. Chronicles meaning the records, history. 25 verse 20. But Amaziah, king of Israel, would not hear, for a king of the Most High, that he might deliver them into the hand of their enemies, because they sought after the gods of Edom. That's what this clown did. Let me open this up. There's a lot of history on Edom, so they must be important in the scriptures. And I ain't even look at the word Esau, Edomites, Idumea, Amalek. Okay, let me just open this up. Give me a second, y'all. Give me a second. I gotta go up. Okay, 17 verse. Then Amaziah, give me a second. Amaziah rebuked for idolatry. Amaziah defeats the Edomites. And what he does, he throws them down. Let me do this. I'll go right to the point. 10 verse. 2 Chronicles 25. Then Amaziah separated them to with the army that was come to him out of Ephraim to go home again. Wherefore their anger was greatly kindled against Judah, and they returned home in great anger. And Amaziah strengthened himself and led forth his people and went to the valley of Salt and smote the sons of Seir 10,000. The sons of Seir 10,000. He killed them, chopped them up. And another 10,000 left alive, and the children of Judah, Yahweh carried away. And the 10,000 left alive did the sons of Judah carry away captive. So he killed 10,000, he enslaved 10,000, and brought them onto the top of the rock and cast them down from the rock, that they all were broken in pieces. That's a hell of a way to go. But it wouldn't be supposed to happen. You got to love the Edomite. But the Lord says, "Born in Deuteronomy 23:7, I'm born out of Edomite." You don't understand the scriptures.
And that was a Dor, not a Syrian. Okay? For the Syrian is your brother, you know, because you were in his land. That was a misprint, because brothers have gone into this before. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite. It should say, thou shalt not abhor a Syrian. Just to clear that one up as well.
But the soldiers of the army which Amaziah sent back, that they should not go with him to battle, fell upon the cities in Judah and Samaria, even unto Beth Horon, and smote 3,000 of them, and took much spoil. When you kill people, you take what they got. That's called spoils, booties. And one more part of it. That was a big deal. That's why the law, Deuteronomy 21:10, that you can have, there's beautiful women of other. Let me remind you, men in Israel, you former one Westers, I don't know about y'all don't want to just slide them over to me, I'll take them. They're women of the other nations, we're going to get them women, even in the kingdom, we're going to be popping women of the other nations, including Edomites. If there's no, you show me the law where it says we can't deal with Edomite women or another woman of another nation. Let me find, brother, I'll be talking to Edomite women too. I'll be looking at them too. I'll be looking at them today when I go to the gym later on. Now it came to pass after that Amaziah was come for the slaughter of the Edomites, that he brought the gods of the children of Seir. Now there's one chief god that was Quartz. You can look him up. Go to Google, put it chat GPT, and put in the word who's the chief god of the Edomites. And a head figure's gonna come up, a bust gonna come up, and the dude looked just like Barry Manilow. He looked just like Barry Manilow and Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown is a guy that had a series of debates with Alizar, formerly priest, chief, whatever, Alizar. But he looked just like Quaz, he's a small hat, and set them up to be his gods. This is what Amaziah did after he destroyed them, and bowed down himself before them, and burned incense unto them. This dude was a civil ass nigga. But anyway, I got what I wanted. This is 19th verse. Thou sayest, Lo, thou hast many Edomites, and thy heart lifteth thee up to boast. Abide thou at home. Why shouldest thou meddle to thine hurt, that thou shouldest fall, even thou and Judah with thee? But Amaziah would not hear, for it came of God that he might deliver them into the hand of enemies, because they sought after the gods of Edom. Yeah, this guy was, his head was not screwed on tight. I'm talking about Amaziah. When he did a good work in killing them, why would you kill them people? And their God didn't come to their rescue, their God didn't come to their aid, and then you go ahead and worship that God, and there's a bust that he looked like that Quaz looked like a damn Edomite. the dead ringer of spitting image of Barry Manilow.
We'll continue this on the next one. Shalom.